Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Steve Bikochen. I'm a medical laboratory scientist, a Kenya's assessor on ISO 15189, and an expert in the safety requirement of ISO 15190, which usually focus on lab safety. I also wear another hat. I'm an occupational safety and health professional, and just like that, just like an ordinary Kenyan, passionate about quality in healthcare. I've spent over 20 years in the field working across diagnostics, research, and lab accreditation. I've been I've seen firsthand how resource challenges can make or break a lab performance and operation. Today we'll be unpacking clause 6.1 of ISO 15189, the 2022 version, focusing on how we can ensure our labs are not only compliant but also resilient and efficient. Whether you work in a county hospital, a private diagnostic center, or a training institution, this session is for you. Welcome. Clause 6.1 is the operational heartbeat of any lab. It ensures that you have the right resources to deliver accurate, timely, reliable results. But let me be blunt. In the over the years, the labs that have been shut down by neglecting this clause. In my 20 years experience, I've categorized resource failures in three deadly sins. The understaffed lab, meaning overworked technologists, technicians, pathologists, make a lot of errors. I once audited a lab where one person was handling hematology, chemistry, and phlebotomy. You can imagine. Mm? Just think of it. The second one is the ghost equipment lab, where machines are listed in SOPs but missing in action. A case in point is a Kisumu lab that had a broken centrifuge for 6 months. No one noticed until audits. You can imagine that. The third one is the expiry date gamblers. I know so many labs have this. Using outdated reagents and hoping for the best. I remember when I was going through some documentation, there's a Kampala lab that reported HIV as false negatives due to expired test kits. Lives were at stake, you can imagine. So, why does this matter to you? Patient trust. A single lab error can destroy credibility. Mhm. Financial loss, repeats, recalls, and fines mm, from our legal team. Legal risk. The KMLTB board doesn't tolerate negligence. So here's the good news. Bear in mind all those. Compliance isn't rocket science. It's about documenting what you do and do what you say or what you document. Let's break it. Let's break this down. Okay. 6.11 General Resource Management. Let me tell you about the most embarrassing audit failure I've ever seen. A lab in Mombasa had a beautiful glossy resource management policy printed, framed, and hung on the wall. But when I asked their procurement records, they handed me a stack of crumpled receipts from a shoebox. Mm. This is why 6.11 exists to separate lip service from real compliance. The three pillars of resource management. That I'm afraid that auditors will destroy you over. Documentation principle. What I look for under the principle. A living resource plan. Living means it's supposed to be updated quarterly, it can be updated monthly, quarterly, um, yearly, biannual, but it should be periodic, not just during audits. We should have also budget versus actual spending reports. You have a budget and you have what you've spent. This provides you something that you can follow. You follow your own rules. And what are we looking for? What are the red flags here? We keep it on in our heads. you know, Everybody asks you, we keep them. So we are we are we are we are we are one resignation away from chaos. We keep it all in our heads. We don't have documentation. We need to have a risk-proof procurement. Risk-proof procurement. There's this nightmare in Nairobi where a lab sole supplier of HIV kits went bankrupt. So no backup plan. 3 weeks of halted testing. You can imagine. Your survival kit in this way is approved vendor list with alternatives for critical items. We should have backup plans. Justification notes for every major purchase. Why is this brand? Why this price? So my favorite trap here is show me. Show me your maintenance contract for this freezer. Show me where you documented staff training. You see? Where you documented the budget. A tip for this is if you can't produce it under 5 minutes, it does not exist. So let me give you a Steve Biko resource management stress test. Ask your team this question. If your lab manager quits tomorrow, will someone find all contracts within an hour? Have you tested your backup suppliers? Did you order a trial batch? Have you done validation? When was the last time you updated your resource plan? And be honest. Be honest with yourself. Remember, in my audits, labs with messy documentations always have a messy results. Don't let that be you, kindly. Let me share a hard truth from my experience of assessing labs. Your most expensive equipment is useless without competent staff. The three deadly sins of personnel management that usually fail audits is the ghost training syndrome. This is very common. You only update your notes when you're about to have audits. There's a Nairobi case study where a lab had 100% trained staff. When I asked a technologist to demonstrate a malaria smear, BS, they used the wrong stain. Their training record, a blank sign-in sheet with no competency check, no monitoring whatsoever. So what's my knife here? Show me where you verified they can actually do this. You see, the second one is the invisible workforce problem. Yeah? There's a lab in Kisumu where entire night shift was unauthorized to release critical results. Patients waited for 48 hours for daytime staff to return. You can imagine. So what are you supposed to do? What's your survival kit? Clear authorization matrix. You have clear authorization matrix where it truly shows who can do what and who can do this. Have shift handover logs. This proves continuity. You understand? You should have the CV. The CV percentage. It's not a CV competency delusion. You see, you should have a competence delusion. A PhD microbiologist failed a basic gram stain test. Why? No annual competency assessment. It's not like he or she does not know, but there's no competency assessments. You may be knowledgeable, you may be qualified, but without constant training, without constant assessments, how will you know? You see? So the reality check under ISO 15189 is training without verification is equals to worthlessness. It's worthless actually. Uh, Observation plus testing plus documentation equals compliance. So what is the Steve Biko Ochieng personal audit fire drill? Conduct this week. Random skill test. Pick 3 staff to demonstrate a routine test which you watch. That's my way. File sprint. Time how long it takes to pull complete training records for one employee. Told you 5 minutes. If it's above 5 minutes, trust me, there's no such documentation. Authorization audit. Check if current staff roles match their paperwork. Any red alert is if any of these take more than 5 minutes, you are audit bait. Why this hurts more than just accreditation? Patient impact. Patient impact. In Nakuru, mislabeled specimen due to untrained phlebotomists led to wrong blood transfusion. You understand? Legal repercussions. The Kenyan Act holds labs liable for staff negligence. When you have such things, staff morale. You see, overworked and trained teams make 5 times more errors than qualified, and they quit faster because of stress and being overwhelmed. So, a point to remember, your people are your first and last line of defense. Invest in them or risk everything. Facility, infrastructure, and requirements. I once remember walking into a level 4 laboratory in Nairobi that had blood samples stored next to a broken window. Direct sunlight, hmm? Dust, insects, inzies, contaminating critical specimens. When asked why, the supervisor said, "You've always done it this way. Always done this way." That lab failed accreditation the same day. Facility and infrastructure. The 3 facility failures that shut down labs. It is just a little mold problem. You understand? A lab ignored black mold um, in the what do you call it? BSc cabinet for months. Results: fungal cultures contaminated, 300 plus TB tests. Patients received false negatives while infectious. You can understand that. What is my nightmare? Show me your last 12 months of environmental monitoring logs. Show me your last 12 months of environmental monitoring logs. You understand? The second is the power outage roulette gamble. A generator failed during a blackout, ruined 6 months of research samples. Their crime? No weekly generator test logs. So, what's your lifesaver? Automatic voltage regulators for sensitive equipment, UPSs, backup generators. You understand? Daily temperature humidity logs, not just when you remember. You need to have them. You need to regulate. Huh? The third one is the safety, what safety? Delusion. There's this lab had a suicide mission. No eyewash stations near acid storage. A spill occurred and staff used bottled water, which spreads chemical burns. ISO 15189 demands clearly marked emergency exits, no storage blocking parts. Monthly safety drills, fire, spill, biohazard. What is the Steve Biko facility autopsy checklist? Hmm? Floors, no cracks, no holes. Rodent pathways, none. Ventilation, hoods actually exhaust outside, not inside. How do I do this? I test with tissue. Storage, chemicals are separated by hazard class. No bleach next to acid. Backups, generator fuel for 72 hours. Oh, monitor. Red flag, if you find extension codes daisy chained, daisy chain, that's fire hazard. You're already failing. Why this is not just about audits? Legal liability. You know the OSHA Act. Patient death. A faulty biosafety cabinet led to a lab tech contracting TB. How many of you have contracted TB? Especially intrinsic TB. Hmm? Financial ruin. How do you rebuild a contaminated lab? It means first closing it down. You understand? And it will cost millions. Always remember, your facility is not just a building. It's your first line of defense against disasters. I once audited a high profile lab in Nairobi that was using a 10-year-old uncalibrated centrifuge for viral load testing. When asked why, the lab manager said, "It spins, doesn't it?" Thus, lab results were off by 40%. They had to recall 2,000 patients, sorry. And they lost their accreditation. I'll give you 4 equipment scenes that destroy labs. 1, the calibration. What calibration? Disaster. Our biochemistry analyzer was 6 months past calibration. Results 87 falsely elevated creatinine results. Nephrology patients were panicking over fake kidney failure. You can imagine. So, what's my favorite question? What's an auditor's favorite question? Show me the last 3 calibration certificates with traceability to Kenas or a partner calibration metrology company accredited or given an OED by Kenas or KEBS. The second one is the expiry date blindness epidemic. Expiry date blindness. A lab used expired blood culture bottles for 4 months. Contamination rate 82%. What's your lifeline here? Red tag system for expiry consumables. 30-day warning is the best. Weekly expiry checks. The FAIR4. Fast expiry, fast out. Do that checks weekly. The third one is the ghost equipment paradox. One lab had SOPs listing a PCR machine that hadn't worked in 2 years. Staff was sending tests to a private lab and faking results. You can imagine. ISO 151 kill switch here is equipment logs must show usage, maintenance, and retirement dates, disposal dates. The fourth one is just a small crack delusion. A technologist used a cracked microscope slide and it shattered during a smear, preparing a smear. This gave her HIV exposure. What is my equipment autopsy or challenge? Spot check. Randomly select 5 pieces of equipment. Can you immediately produce current calibration certificate, maintenance log past 3 months, operator training records? Hmm? It's a red flag if you can't find all these three within 5 minutes per device. Your lab is one audit away from disaster. Why this goes beyond compliance? Patient harm. Uncalibrated glucometers cause diabetic patients to receive wrong insulin doses. That was in Kericho. It's a legal time bomb. Financial suicide. And then remember, your equipment is either your best ally or your worst courtroom witness. Choose wisely. Last year, I walked into a tier 3 lab in Western Kenya that had outsourced the entire IT system to a guy who knows computers. When their server crashed, patient results disappeared for 3 weeks. And the IT expert had no backups, no contract, no liability. I'm telling you, the lab is still recovering from lawsuits. Now, the 3 deadly sins of support services is the handshake agreement trap. A lab equipment calibration vendor vanished overnight. No contract, no trace. The over 5 million analyzer sat idle for 4 months. My first question will be, show me your current service level agreement, SLAs, with this vendor. You can imagine. The second one is the we trust them blindly mistake. A Kisumu lab had a waste disposal company dumped biohazard waste in public landfill. The lab was fined 5 million shillings for negligence. What should be a shield here? Annual vendor audits. Visit their facility. Get to know them. Get to see their legal entities. Hmm? Look at their performance records, scorecards, track response times, failures. You understand? Hmm? The third one is the no plan B suicide mission. Hmm? This was in Mombasa, a Mombasa disaster. A lab's only courier service went on strike during a cholera outbreak. 200 samples spoiled before backup transport arrived. You can imagine. So, what's your lifeline? Dual vendor policy for critical services. Have emergency protocols. Test them quarterly or periodically, whichever is cheaper for you. But make sure it's frequent. Hmm? So, what is the Steve Biko support service stress test? And you should conduct this next week. Call your IT vendor right now. Ask where are our backups stored? If they state panic, kimbia. Hmm? Inspect waste disposal records. Demand signed manifest for the last 3 hauls, the 3 takes. Hmm? Simulate a crisis. Cut power abruptly. Do fire drills. Does your generator vendor actually respond in the promised time? If your lab fails any of these, you are one phone call away from a catastrophe. Why is this not just paperwork? Again, legal doomsday. NEMA. Hmm? Patient impact. You understand? Financial ruin. Remember, your support services are invisible pillars holding up your lab. If they crumble, everything fails. What are the measurables and audits checks? we go through. 2 months ago, I audited a lab. I don't want to say which lab, that proudly declared we are 100% compliant until I asked for their quality indicators. They handed me a single handwritten log from 2019 with 3 entries. That lab is now suspended. The 4 audit killers that expose labs. The we do it but don't record it fallacy. In a lab, staff perform daily freezer checks but never logged them in. During an audit, the assessor found vaccines spoiled with no proof of monitoring. What is the rule? What is the ISO 15189 rule? No record is equals to never happened. The second one is the KPI are just show trap. A lab in Nairobi tracked equipment uptime as okay, not okay, with zero hard data. Okay, not okay. The analyzer had been failing 30% of runs for months. No, how do you survive this? Quantify everything. AG, freezer temperature excursion, 0 out of 30 days. Trend analysis, do trend analysis. Why did reagent waste spike in December? Why? Did you have reviews? Did you have recalls? Did you have rechecks? The third one is the interview panic moment. A technician told me I've done this test 1,000 times, then couldn't name the critical control steps. What is my trick here? You cross-check records with staff knowledge. The fourth one is the dusty binder deception. A lab's current SOP were printed in 2015 with no evidence of reuse. Their methods are obsolete. You understand? So, what is the Steve Biko Chieng audit proof lab challenge here? And I hope you try this today. Grab your last 3 QC records. Are they complete? Are they signed and trended? Interview your junior staff. Can they explain why a key step masters? That is in your SOP. Check your SOPs. Is the review date within the last year? The red alert here is if any of these take more than 5 minutes, your lab is unprepared. Why is this life or death? Patient safety. A lab unreviewed SOPs led to misdiagnosis of malaria cases. Legal peril. Financial ruin. So remember, auditors aren't your enemy. Complacency is. So what are the teaching and training tips here? Practical training methods enhance. Listen carefully, colleagues. I've assessed labs in Kenya, and the difference between those that pass with flying colors and those that fail miserably comes down to one thing: how well they train their teams on these requirements. Today, I'll show you exactly how this flows from theory to muscle memory. 1. Make it real. Use case studies. Kenya. Forget hypotheticals. Let's talk real labs. Case study. A lab in Mombasa failed their audit because staff couldn't produce competency records. How do we fix this? Action. Run quarterly mock audits where teams must present their own training files. You understand? Internal audits. Some of you do internal audits. Another case study. A Nairobi lab lost accreditation after expired reagents were found. Not because they were not stocked, but because no one trained the night shift on stock checks. What will be your action here? Implement cross-shift training. Training and drills with sign-offs. They have to sign. Turn to your neighbor. What's one near miss in a lab that could have avoided with better training? Hmm? Think about it. Do mock audits. You can use Kenna's assessor's playbook. You can engage mentors. You can engage external auditors. You can also do internal auditors. I'll let you on a secret. This is how I train lab to survive real assessments. The document hunt. Hide 5 critical records, e.g. calibration, certificates, vendor contracts, and time teams to find them. Role playing. Make staff defend their competency records to a rude assessor. Sabotage drills intentionally to mislabel consumables or unplug a freezer. Does your team catch it during inspections? So a professional tip here is record these sessions. Nothing sharpens performance like watching yourself fumble under pressure. The use of checklists that work. Generic checklists fail. You must be lab specific. For equipment, include daily calibration verification steps, not just check temperature. How do you check them? For vendors, add a column for last incident response time. For safety, embed OSH checks. Are emergency exits accessible during night shifts? Hmm? Here is your homework. Take your current checklist and add 3 context-specific items before tomorrow. Teach back the Kenyan way, cultural reverence. Sorry. In our labs, the best training is not top down; it's peer to peer. I assign resource champion for each area, consumables guru who runs monthly expiry date races, mm, reward teams publicly for catching errors during drills, even a handwritten shutout board works, closing challenges, call to action. I'll leave this to you. The labs that thrive under ISO 151 don't know these rules. They don't just know these rules, they live them. Starting today, replace one theoretical training session with a hands-on drill. When I return for you next audit, I want to see this evidence. Why this works for Kenyan labs? Localized examples build relevance. Assessor's age reveals exactly how Kenyans evaluate competency. OSH integration embeds safety into routine checks. Cultural response is using Swahili peer learning models familiar to Kenyan teams. Understanding ISO 15189 2022 checklist helps standardize assessment and reinforce quality culture. The hard truth is after 20 years in IVD, here is what I know about. Here is know about ISO 15189. Compliance is not about passing audits. It's about protecting every patient whose samples enters your lab. Understand? It's about protecting every patient whose samples enter your lab. Your roadmap to resilience from today on forward. Remember these 3 pillars. 1. People first. People first. Competent, confident staff are your strongest assets. Systems that work, checklists, and processes that catch your reality. Proof, not promises. Documentation speaks for itself. I'm giving you, I'm giving each of you a mission. County labs, conduct your first mock audit within 14 days. Private facilities, implement vendor scorecards by month end. Training schools, build these practical drills in your courses. When I next walk into a lab, I want to see staff who own their processes, record that records that tell your quality story, a team ready for any audit anytime. And the final charge is we didn't choose this profession because it was easy. We chose it because Kenyan lives depend on our work. Let's stop chasing compliance and start building labs we are proud of. Remember, great labs are not born, they are built. And that work starts today. Thank you very much.